This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now.
Well, good Thursday morning and welcome to Open Line. I'm your host, Darren Bent, and I've been sitting in now for 2 weeks, and today is the second last show. I'll be back again tomorrow. And look, it's been a great time over the past couple of weeks getting a chance to touch base with so many people around the province, talk about a bunch of different issues. And at hand now, imminent, next Wednesday, we are going to find out what the VOCM government is proposing in its first budget. And of course, some of the things they've already talked about is that it's not going to be a slash and burn budget. It's going to be a help people with the cost of living style budget. Also, they are reviewing some 300 taxes and fees that are implemented on a number of different things throughout the province and on a number of different styles of things that we pay for in this province. And they're saying some of them even may cost more to have in place than they bring in revenue. So one of the things, if you want to call in today, they're reviewing the financial situation of the province. They're reviewing how they can help all of us for the cost of living. What are some of the things you're paying taxes or fees on in this province that you think they should be looking at, they should be giving us a break on? One of the things that's always contentious is the taxes on home heating. There is a bit of a rebate for oil users, but what about electricity users? Everyone pays taxes probably, and I would guess depending on how much electricity you're using to heat your home, somewhere between $50 and $200 a month in taxes alone, just to keep your house warm throughout the winter, throughout the year. So those are some of the things that we want to talk about. Something that has also gotten a lot of attention recently is, of course, the use of AI by the Arts and Tourism Minister in a post that depicted Minister Barber in front of the rooms, and of course an AI generated fake logo, I suppose, of the rooms over top of what would be the caribou that, of course, represents the Newfoundland Regiment, and particularly the memory and, of course, the sacrifice by the Newfoundland Regiment in World War I and Beaumont Hamel. And, of course, this has offended many, but there are all kinds of questions about this. The minister said she popped it up on Facebook or social media, whatever it was, and has taken it down since, has said she regretted doing it. But the questions are about the use of AI by elected officials, and of course the accountability of doing that. And I have on the line this morning right away the MHA for St. John's East Kitty Vitty, the NDP MHA Sheila O'Leary. And Sheila, welcome to Open Line.
Oh my gosh, good morning, and Darren, it's so wonderful to hear you in this role. I'm so glad I caught you before you finished off your stint. How have you been enjoying it?
Oh no, it's been more fun than I thought it would be, but it's interesting format. It's free form and it's 3 hours long. It's not something I'm used to. So I'm a babe in the arms of the anointed here at VOCM. They have amazing support system in place, great people, a great newsroom, and they're just fantastic to work with. And of course, it's just been a great pleasure talking to so many people, and it's great to talk with you this morning. And I know that you have sent out a release over the past day or so. The party has to talk about this AI use by the minister. I'll let you have your say, and then we'll get into the back and forth on it.
Absolutely. Well, look, we put out a release. There's certainly, with a critical lens there for the Minister of Tourism, Culture and Arts, obviously using AI to generate a Facebook post. And yes, there has been a lot of discussion about this. So I'm going to just give you a little background, and you would know this yourself because you and I certainly met many, many years ago when you were early in journalism, and I was in the art realm, working as a professional photographer. My background before I got involved in politics, of course, I'm 40 years a professional photographer, an artist, and just recently went back to school as a senior student and got my Master of Fine Arts. And so I've been very entrenched in the arts community, not only of the city of St. John's, but certainly the province and throughout the country. I've exhibited internationally. And so, I know the community. I know the importance, and AI use is a very big concern in the art realm. I'm going to tell you right off the top, art is work. Tourism is work. Heritage is work. And, to be a minister of the Tourism, Culture, and Arts portfolio is a powerful privilege, to be a minister of the significant portfolio. So it can't be dismissed. It has to be taken seriously because this is truly people's livelihoods. And I accept the fact that people make mistakes and there was an apology. However, this is a ministerial role, and the frustration that artists and people working in the tourism and cultural heritage industry are feeling is very, very high. And there needs to be a clear commitment to protecting creative work, recognizing that artists' livelihoods are under real and immediate pressure. So, there are a lot of people who can do that work. We don't need to rely on AI for that because we're undercutting people's work and their livelihoods in order to do that. And I'm hearing loud and clear from constituents. I'm hearing from the cultural community, but beyond, that this is really unacceptable. So I'm certainly hopeful that the minister is going to start looking into this seriously, not to be dismissive, and to really take on the responsibility of how we continue to power human resource in the realm of art and tourism and heritage portfolio. So, so I really wanted to put that out there. I think it's extremely important that we acknowledge that, and also just to give that little bit of background there as well, because I'm not talking out of the side of my mouth. This has been my livelihood, and when the minister says that she's an artist, I will take that, but I've been working for 40 years in this community, and I do know the shortcomings, and that people are trying to stay alive through this type of work. So it's really important that it be taken seriously. Yeah,
and far be it from me to judge what is art and what isn't, and I'll never do that. But what I would say is, and I got to be honest with you, and Sheila, and I don't know about your experience in this, but my experience in the media is that I would be absolutely shocked to find out that this isn't a huge discussion around the communications table at Confederation Building about, putting stuff up on social media, that when you're a minister of the Crown, you're a minister of the Crown. You may be other things, but first and foremost, you're representing the people, you're representing the department, not just your constituents, but the entire province when you have that role. And my experience is that nothing came to the media that hadn't been vetted by communications, and it would just seem that this is one of those things. Sheila, rookie mistake, no harm, no foul, or is the bigger issue overweighing this? Because we're not only hearing it from visual artists, we're hearing it from performing artists as well, the AI machine.
Absolutely. And it undercuts people. I mean, we're talking about voiceovers. We're talking about people using artificial voices, posters, all that kind of stuff. This truly is people's livelihoods. And so it is a concern, and there is a healthy communications department, obviously, with the government. And you know what, look, I will say we all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. But this has been a few times now with this minister, and I think it's extremely important that it be taken seriously. I would be just it is such a place of privilege to be the minister of the portfolio for tourism, culture, arts, and recreation. It truly is something that, as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, that we strongly identify with our cultural identity. But it's not just, a sideline. This is actually how people make their living, and it's how we draw people to this province. It's what, also invigorates ourselves and our own personal cultural history. And it's the reason why many of us actually stay and live here as opposed to moving off to more economically prosperous areas. It really is important that we see a minister take this seriously, and she's got lots of help. She's got lots of help in that communication department, and so I'm certainly hopeful that not only are they going to keep an eye on this issue and really delve into actually using human resource rather than AI, but and not think about it as an afterthought. You're playing with people's lives here, and the tourism industry brings in a lot of money. And the other thing is, Darren, I'll just quickly say, how disrespectful, right? I know it was a mistake, but the Caribou Monument, you know how passionate we all are about honoring the Royal Newfoundland Regiment. So
absolutely,
it really
Sheila,
is something that hit a really sore point with a lot of people, and I hope that the minister will do better.
So here's the fallout, and you've seen it. We've all seen it with a lot of things that happen, over time on social media with regards to something like this. We saw it with the lady that was arguing over a baseball at a baseball game a year or so ago that went viral, as they say, and everybody was using those pictures to do something else with. You may remember Bernie Sanders and his big mittens, and then of course there's pictures going around with Bernie Sanders in all kinds of situations, him and his big mittens. There is now pictures being used by some people of this particular one, and there's actually one out there that has a business name in place of the rooms that was put up by Minister Barber in that, and that's floating around as well. The fallout from it then is people are using this. A lot of attention.
They're
using it. Yeah, they're using it. Businesses seem to be, or at least one business is using it, and other people are making fun of it, and it just continues and continues. But what would you say to people that are wanting to use this to have some fun, maybe, or to promote their own business? That this is a no-no, isn't it?
Oh, you know what? Look, social media can be a wonderful tool, but it can also be a pariah. Let's be honest. And it's sometimes there can be a real pile-on, and then there's opportunists. So there's going to be all of that in there. The one thing I would like to say is that I am somebody who has built my whole life and my social activism and then in my political career on trying to empower women and gender diverse people. So this is, so I there's a part of me that is really concerned about how people can certainly pile on social media and be really nasty or opportunistic in those scenarios. I'm here to try to support equity, and you know what? Look, we're all elected to serve the people of this province. And I know why I'm there, and I know why my colleague Jim Dinn is there. We're there to ensure equity, fairness, and to make sure that the people who are really, truly suffering have a voice. And you know what? Sometimes we may get dismissed because it's a small caucus and all the rest. But the reality is that we have been bringing things to the table, and certainly prior to my time, to really elevate the discussion, to hold government accountable. And that is our role. It's so important. So this has to be taken seriously. And as much as I want to support everybody, you have to have a level of competency when you are in a role of that magnitude. And so the nastiness on social media, let it go. I don't pay much attention to it. You can't, because it'll get inside your head. But the reality is that we have to be responsible leaders.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line for me.
Now, look, if I could throw something at you that come up in the House yesterday, it's something that people are concerned about, of course, and that is the cost of electricity. And it seemed like there was some back and forth between the Premier and Newfoundland Hydro with regards to increases that may be coming in July, yet there's been no application for increases in July. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think, again, the CNDP showing leadership and pulling people into decision making. It was really great to see that there was some talk about some mitigation on the rates. This is what we're talking about all the time. We're trying to make people's livelihoods more sustainable. And we're hearing from people all the time in our office that they're really, really struggling. Yesterday, we had a big debate, of course, about our private members' resolution was put on the table about capping the corporate subsidies, the bonuses of the executives of Newfoundland Power. And we've seen this happen. All levels of government supported it in Nova Scotia. It was done like 14, 15 years ago. And you know what? People can make whatever amount of money they can. You know what? Fill your boots. Nobody is preventing anybody from success. But when we are seeing people with cutoff notices or threatening cutoff notices in the middle of winter, people who are on fixed incomes who cannot support themselves and have, these huge rising electrical bills happening. And we see top executives at Newfoundland Power getting bonuses of almost over $400,000 that come from the stakeholders. That should be coming from the shareholders. And so we, the NDP, and certainly Leader Jim Dinn put that resolution forward. We had a healthy debate about it. We actually got the support of the Liberal caucus. But unfortunately, I guess they're protecting corporate buddies, and they wanted to kick it down the road. The urgency of this direction of the resolution that we put forward obviously wasn't a huge concern. So we had a really healthy debate about that yesterday. It was really unfortunate. We are disappointed, but these are the things that we're going to keep fighting for because we need to change the system for everybody.
All right, Sheila, thank you very much for calling in this morning. Talk about these issues and the concerns that you have, especially from the arts world and so forth. And we'll see where it goes. Thank you very much. Great talking to you. And we're going to move on now. We're getting close to the break, and we'll be back in just a few moments on Open Line. Take care now.
Well, wonderful to talk to you. Thanks so much for having me. Okay.
Welcome back to Open Line. I'm your host, Darren Bennett. We just had Sheila O'Leary on talking about the tourism minister and use of AI in a picture. And of course, when this was brought up in the House of Assembly, the minister said she would check into it. When she checked into it, she said she regretted it, and it was taken down right away. Most all the things that we see from government, especially from ministers, is vetted by a communications department. Of course, this one wasn't. And it went directly up from the minister. And then, of course, that raises the question is, should ministers, should government officials be getting everything they do vetted before they put it up, or should they have the freedom to put up whatever it is they think is right? Once the issue was raised with the minister, she realized that this was probably not the best way to do it and regretted it and took it down. And that's fair enough. To me, I don't see it as much of a political issue as I see it as the use of AI, cautionary tale for people that do it. And then, of course, there's the question now that we're seeing that this picture is being reused and resent and shared and all of that, and is taking on an online life of its own. And if you're not following the stuff online, you're probably better off when it comes to that. But anyway, those are the questions. And of course, we hear from performing artists, we hear from visual artists about AI and the trouble they're having in their industry with that. And that is a real concern going forward. And of course, people now, sometimes when they're watching or they're on social media, they're looking, they can't tell what's AI and what's not. Some things you can obviously tell is AI. Anyway, we're going to change subjects completely. I have online to Paul, and Paul wants to talk about wild salmon stocks. Paul, welcome to Open Line.
Hello, Darren. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Loud and clear.
Excellent. I wish we had AI to solve our salmon issues and the wild Atlantic salmon anyway.
Yeah, I don't know what an AI salmon would taste like, but I'm not sure it's something I want to delve into. But anyway, you go ahead.
Well, I'm thinking some of the boys this year, when they catch 5-6 pounders with AI, they can turn them into 60 pounders. That'll be fun to watch. Anyway, Darren, Earth Day was yesterday. I contacted my buddy. He's a professional guide. Evening, the annual DFO, Department of Fisheries and Oceans, Salmon Workshop. It was online, and he was the only guide there. Now, there were no guardians there, the fishery guardians who, the boots on the ground, the troops. They got some great insight, and there was no youth. No invites there. So, I got to ask the minister, why not? I don't care how things were done in the past, whatever, but you need input from a lot of people to help us change our ways and means and protecting this incredible species. It's on the verge of being decimated all over the world for a multitude of reasons. But the first step in keeping it going and is to protect what you already have. And so, those fishery guardians, they got answers. I don't know. Sometimes I question DFO. I was hoping for some change, but it just seems like they don't care and they do what they want, and it's not good enough. I had a buddy, he was in the provincial government years ago, and he said, Paul, he said, my job was to tell the minister what he needed to know. Not what he wanted to hear, but what he needed to know. Up to him to make the decision. But, tell him what he needed to know. So the other thing, Darren, is I spoke face-to-face with Clifford Small, the political people, and they all say the same thing. It's the anglers and the youth, the next generation, that are there to, protect these fish. And so, you need more input. You need ideas and solutions from the people who see it firsthand, not the people in the air conditioned offices or the elitists, all this kind of stuff, but the people on the ground doing the actual work. Yeah,
hasn't that always been the complaint and the concern, of course, from any fishery, is that the advice that comes is not always from those who have the earth knowledge of what's actually going on in different areas, whether it's at sea or in rivers and so forth. What type of forum, what type of a setup would you like to see to get the right people around the table to have? Is it to be open hearings? Should it be in person setup, that sort of thing?
First of all, radical, what do you call it, contrarian
and
thinker.
Paul, if I could, you are breaking up a little bit there now, and if you're moving around or anything, don't do that. But let's just see if we can keep going with this.
Rural answer to that, buddy. Well, the first thing I would do, I'd look at the DFO management in Wood Hills. There's great officers in that, but some of that probably needs to be cleaned out. I'd have young people. I'd have stakeholders. I'd have the fishery guardians. I'd have the old timers, the old skippers, different opinions, and to tell it like it is. Here's our problem. Here's our solution. Well, it's the same thing. And I was telling your colleague who took the call, Patty Daly and I talked once a year on this, usually this time of year for the last decade. And it's still the same song and dance.
Yeah, and yeah, you go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you broke up there a little bit, Paul. You go ahead.
No, so the fishery guardians, they're not even hired yet. There was a new contract put out. The ones on the West Coast, they're supposed to be hired they're supposed to be go to work the first week of May. They don't even know who got the contract yet. It's not been announced. And, bids were put in, I don't know, a month ago. So, it's all these things, Darren, and it comes down to leadership. It comes down to leadership.
That seems a little last minute, doesn't it? If you're supposed to have people on the go in the early May and they're still not hired as of yet, that seems like you may be finding people, you may not be finding people.
Well, there you go, and they got to get their uniforms. They got to do their checks, get the signs up, meetings. Meanwhile, in the ocean, we know, the anglers know, the people in the rural communities know, the ocean poaching is still rampant. And the nets go in the water. The twine goes in. It's being knit right now, Darren. The twine goes in the water first week of May, mid-May. These people, are on then to do coastal patrols or what have you. So it comes down to leadership, intelligence, and a lot of us had hope that Mr. Clifford Small was going to get in there and make this happen. But anyway, it didn't happen. But I do know, as a fisherman, you need someone like Clifford or someone who understands the fishery. I guess just like you have a minister that understands education or law, in those portfolios. But it's unfortunate, Darren, but here we are. And how about leaving on this one?
Yeah, and of course, the federal
sorry.
government's a big ship to turn, isn't it? When you're looking to get information. I mean, how long have people been fighting on the food fishery, and now it seems like there may be some possible changes this year. The salmon, though, are very fragile, and that's always a concern. Conservation's always a concern, and of course, environmental changes that and especially last year when we saw it with the I suppose for Newfoundland standards, nearly a drought in Newfoundland with regards to the salmon. That must have had a concerning effect as well.
Yeah, like the last 3 years, it was warm and hot. Last year's numbers were a bit better, but the 2 years before that were abysmal, right? So you're bang on there. The bureaucracy poking through that and trying. Well, anyway, we keep fighting. And that's what we teach the kids in school. You got to fight for what you believe in. The BC recreational salmon industry, now I know they use offshore sports fishing in boats and stuff, is worth $1 billion. $1 billion a year goes into the BC economy. Newfoundland should have $100 million going in its economy with the Atlantic salmon resource we have, and that might be a lofty goal, but it's possible.
Yeah. Anyways, Paul, I'm up against the break. I appreciate you calling and raising this issue, and it's something, of course, of concern to many people in the province. Of course, the salmon stock. You bring up I probably shouldn't say this out loud. I don't know who's eating Pacific salmon. We've got the best salmon in the world on this end of the country, of course, and and I know you go into supermarkets around here somewhere and you find Atlantic salmon on the front of the pack, and you find out it's from down in South America somewhere. So anyway, we do have the best salmon, and look forward to the salmon season this year. Paul, thank you for calling, raising the concerns about this. It's paramount that we protect those stocks and that we have the best information and advice possible for the people that make the decisions. You take care. You have a great day.
Thank you, Darren.
I'm going to go to break, and we'll be back on Open Line in just a few moments. Welcome back to Open Line. I'm your host, Aaron Bent, and we're off to a flying start here on the show this morning, talking about all kinds of different things, AI, salmon, power rates, and so forth. And right now I'm going to go to line 3 to talk to John about something completely different. John, welcome to Open Line.
Good morning, and thank you very much for taking my call. I'm calling this morning to share my experience that I had yesterday when I'm taking my mom to the health science emergency. And before I start, I need to give you a tiny bit of background. My mom is 91 years old. She suffers from dementia, and she's currently in a personal care home in St. John's. And my reason for sharing this story is basically to try and keep the narrative open when it comes to healthcare for aging seniors. And I want to be very clear that I'm not in any way blaming the people who work at health science or in this industry. I'm just presenting my situation so that hopefully government and decision makers realize that there is a constant need for review, and this is very, very important to keep hearing narratives like this, to review the how this hits home with each individual family. So I'll just, if you would bear with me for a moment, give you a quick rundown on what happened last night. So I was called by my mom's personal care home saying she had a lot of chest congestion and difficulty breathing. So the recommendation was to maybe bring her up to the health science to get her checked and see if we could get some appropriate medication. And so I went in there right away. I saw her. We had paramedics come in and do some testing on site, and the decision was made to transport her to the health science via ambulance. And so when we arrived, she went through the usual triage, and the paramedic eventually wheeled her back out to the waiting room where I was, and we sat, we're going to sit and wait our turn to go in. And the room was fairly busy. And one of the things I found interesting is, luckily, I knock wood that I don't have to visit the health science very often in my life, but there were a lot of people there who actually had cooler bags of meals for the day as they waited because they knew the wait was going to be long. So when I saw this, I anticipated we were going to be there for a while, but I thought given her age and condition and so on, that it wouldn't be too long.
So was she in the regular waiting room, or was she backstage, as they say? say? Okay, so she was out in the waiting room. Okay.
We were brought into the regular waiting room, and that was fine. Like my mom, although she has dementia, physically she's a frail woman, but she's that old school toughness is hard to describe to you. But it's she gets around. She's ambulatory, but her cognition is not there. So we waited in there in the waiting room, and we had the little hospital blanket on her, and she was propped up against my shoulder in and out of sleep, and I could hear her chest wheezing, and she frequently coughed to try and clear her airways. So we sat there patiently, and after 5 hours passed by, her confusion level due to dementia started to kick in. So she turned to me and said, I think I'll just go back up to my room now. And I had to explain to her, Mom, you're in the hospital now. She had forgotten that we were in the hospital at this time. And that's fine. That's part of the, the hazing that happens with this, with dementia. So we went back and forth on that a bit. So I asked one of the people there, I said, could you watch her for a second? I went over to ask a staff member to maybe get an estimate on the continued wait time. And they checked basically, and I was told that her file was not out of triage yet. So we were 5 hours in that waiting room there, and her file hadn't moved from the desk that she initially came in on. And again, I said to myself, I'm going to remind the staff there that she's 91 with dementia, but through no fault of theirs, they couldn't really give me a time except to say, we're hoping in the next 2 to 3 hours. And I fully understand that an emergency room in a hospital is coping with life and death situations behind the doors that we can't see. And, at any given time, the healthcare professionals there are having to put, I'll say, our common illnesses on the sideline while we get looked at. But so anyway, by the 6 hour mark, my mom was so confused, we had to leave the health science without seeing a doctor. And, it was a struggle for me personally. I'm in my mid-60s, but she's still my mom, and it was a struggle for me to keep myself together because she was crying on the way out, because at this point now she didn't know where she was. She was scared. We had to leave that health science in the nighttime, walk across that parking lot in the rain and fog and crap that we had for weather yesterday, and she was crying, and of course I cried too. And my story is not unique.
No, and there you are walking across the parking lot to get back to your vehicle,
Yep.
knowing that you have just wasted your time. You have probably upset your mother. You've upset yourself. There's stress and all of that, and of course, at the end of it, your experience is below zero. You have lost. You have been broken even on it.
I know there are tons of people who can share and relate to this. And again, I'm not blaming the people behind the lines here. I'm just asking government, hire more people. Look at your protocols. Our population is aging, and there must be some way to put in a return notification system or something so that these people don't have to sit in that room propped up in a chair. And this problem is so multi-layered, and I apologize because this is emotional for me.
No,
but I just needed to share this today, and I hope that the people who are higher up and are listening just take some time in your day to put the human side on this and spend a bit of our government time and money to review these things and try to continue to make it better as best we can. We're all getting there. One of the days, I'm going to be the one under the blanket, or you are. And you'll hope that the system is in there to make this as easy as they can for you. And, again, to all the healthcare professionals, thank you for what you do. I'm grateful to be a Canadian and to have free healthcare. But we still need to tweak this and make it work for all ends of our emergency care. I do also have to say before I leave, there are a bunch of people sitting around that waiting room, fellow Newfoundlanders, who reached out to me while I was there asking if they needed me, they wanted to go to the cafeteria and get my mom something, or just trying to share a story, keep her occupied. We're in such a beautiful place, and I give thanks for that. Anyway, I appreciate your time, and I hope I got my point across.
Yeah, John, you got your point across loud and clear, and unfortunately, it resonates very well with a lot of people that have had somewhat similar experiences, if not for a family member that they love, but themselves. And, it's just one of those things that in 2026, we're talking about AI, we're talking about, distance phone call doctor appointments, we're talking about all kinds of wonderful things. But we can't seem to get people through the emergency room in a timely manner that doesn't exacerbate their health issues any further than what they already are. And, I don't mind saying the last time I was there 12 hours. I was fully capable of handling it. But a gentleman that was there at the same time, he had been there 16. Ran into him a while later. What time did you get out? Oh, I was there 16 hours. And look, it doesn't matter your condition. It's just too long. And there needs to be a way figured out to get that done, whether it's urgent care facilities, whether it's the new hub, whatever it is. We shouldn't be exposing our residents, our friends, neighbors, loved ones to a system that does not serve us and takes away from us at times. And of course, this has nothing to do with the healthcare professionals that are there. I have never had anything but stellar support from the nurses, the doctors. Look, even the janitors over there sometimes will stop and say, can I help you with something? It is a great group of people. But your point, not enough, and maybe not a good enough pathway system for entrance. Should your mother have seen somebody? If not, even a healthcare professional that deals with dementia, just to help her through, to help you through, and it's very frustrating, I got to say. John, did you want to have a final word before you go?
No, just thank you very much for your time, and again, just I'm reaching out to the people at the very top of this food chain here and asking them to, just keep reviewing things, try to find ways to make this system work a little bit better for everyone. And every time we make a small change, it helps.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, John. You have a good day. All the best to you and your mother.
Okay.
I hope nothing but the best for her, and hopefully the next experience that she has in this system is a little better. We need to do better, and we need to find a way to do it. And we're hoping that we spoke to the Premier about wait times and so forth last week, and he talks about it's the people in the system. We need to make sure that they have the supports they need and that there's enough of them. It's absolutely right. But can we get there? Because we never seem to get there. It always seems to be the same. Maybe the new health model will get us there, but how long is it going to take? Anyway, thank you, John. I'm going to turn it over to Dave, and he's going to take us to break, and we're going to be back in a few moments. You take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Welcome back to Open Line. I'm your host, Darren Bent, and we're going to go to line 1 to talk with Daryl. Daryl, welcome to Open Line.
Oh, hi, Darren. How you doing today?
Great so far, Daryl. How about yourself? What are you calling in on?
Oh, I'm going to allude to your last caller there. And I've addressed a lot of these issues with the Health Accord. We got to look at Norway and the Netherlands. Norway, 8% of the people in Norway got a family doctor. The Netherlands got it down pat for wait times and emergency, pretty well non-existent. And I've addressed these issues before, so I think Newfoundland Labrador government or all of Canada or whatever should look at their models. They're way ahead of us, like Switzerland. All these countries, and this neck of the woods, we go to the doctor when we're sick. A lot of those places, you go to the doctor to stay healthy. And this is where we got to start looking at things in general for the better. I was just listening to your last caller there, and it's very sad what people got to go through. Yeah. So I think if anyone's listening, with Newfoundland Labrador government, which they are, explore these avenues for the better of the people. But what I'm going to talk about today is the cancer research group with Memorial University. They had recently had their funding halted. And when we look at, like, say, cancer, diabetes, cardio, could be Alzheimer's, MS, whatever the case may be, these programs should not be cut. Because, this is essential to the health care and going to the Health Accord back in 2022, to me, is going against what we got to be doing for the better. So what I'm hoping next week in the budget, can the Newfoundland Labrador government, the health minister, Premier Wakem, whatever, take a look at this and, if anything, find the money for this, because you could find efficiencies without cutting programs. And this is another big problem. I remember, I don't know if you remember Undercover Boss Canada, I remember the CEO of Sunnybrook Hospital. He went undercover. He found, $3 million in savings and didn't have to cut no programs whatsoever. So when it comes to these important stuff, because I think Newfoundland Labrador, we're probably the highest rate in Canada for cancer, diabetes, cardio, we're way, way up there. And then when I read this article that they're halting this program, I think you better take a second look at all this, because this is important stuff.
And Memorial University Research has done some incredible work over the years, with our genome, the DNA, the issues that face Newfoundlanders and Labradorians that, are unique to I suppose even on the island end of it, and of course with diabetes and the cancer as well. So, it does seem like an odd sort of area that would have to suffer some funding losses, going forward, because things aren't getting better in any of these areas, or they seem to be getting worse. And of course, as we all age and we're getting older as a population, we're more susceptible to all kinds of different things, and cancer probably the leading one among them.
Oh yeah, and exactly. So I mean, if anything, the provincial government should establish the funding for these programs or any other programs to that nature, because it's very, very important. And the sad part about it all is that rather than cut, sometimes you got to be innovative and creative. But I mean, you can't be, you can't go like this cutting these programs. But a lot of times these programs are being cut is due to mismanagement of money. And a lot of times there's no accountability in general. So when you're cutting these programs, they're cutting it because there's no funds for it, because a lot of times the money is mismanaged and it's not managed properly. And this is the problem with our system too, is accountability. A lot of times there's money going out the door and wasteful, rather than being productive and put into areas like cancer or whatever. And in general, there got to be more and more efficiencies for the better. And rather than being reactive, we got to be proactive. So to me, when you're cutting something like the cancer program there in Mon or whatever, you're being reactive rather than being proactive. Proactive, keep these things in place, which is good for the healthcare and for the betterment of the people in general.
Yeah, and of course, Daryl, I don't think we know the full story of it, where all the money is being spent, how much is being spent to maintain things that are probably not necessary and so forth. It's a big beast over there, and there's a lot of things happening. They just put up the new building there in the past number of years. They've got older buildings that are falling apart that need maintenance all the time. Now they're looking at programs to cut funding. I'm not sure if they're looking at faculty or any of that sort of thing to ease some of the burden there. But certainly, as almost an autonomous group, they're deciding what it is they're going to cut and what they're not going to cut, and they don't seem to be at an end to it yet. We haven't heard the full capture of it because of the financial situation they're facing, and of course some of that they're blaming on government. But the truth of the matter is that this university has thousands and thousands of students paying a lot of money for courses, and some of it subsidized, of course. So we need to get the full value from the university as a province, and academically, that's what they're there for. They're there to assist. They're there to develop, and they're there to lead us in some of these areas like healthcare, which seems to me to be one of the things that you want to focus on. They got the medical school over there that's doing great work, of course. And if you're not doing things that are going to improve the livelihood and support the issues that are facing the people of the province, then you have to look at what you're doing. But I'm not sure where it's going to end over there. There's all kinds of different things that they're looking at, I'm sure, and this is just the first of it. But anyway, the research is a big part of any university, and of course, that a lot of funding goes into research. So it seems odd in the research end that there would be cuts to programs. Does that not seem odd to you? Because a lot of these are sponsored. There seems to be, different groups and organizations worldwide that sponsor research.
Right. No, you hit it right on the nail there, Darren. And but going back to the buildings, like they're getting deplorable. They need severe upgrades or probably new buildings, whatever the case may be. And again, it's going back to neglect. And the money wasn't put into it when it should have been. If they did things as it went along, you wouldn't be into the state you are now. And the reason why money didn't go into things, again, because money went out the door on other things which probably was non-essential, and we're going back again to accountability and mismanagement. So this is where it's all stemming from, and unfortunately, then everybody got to pay the price for it. And so this is where we're not getting it. If something goes wrong and something is neglected, isn't it easier to keep on top of it right away and rather let it go on for years? And then all of a sudden you could be going in millions and millions of dollars. Oh, God, now we can't afford this. So then you're going to cut programs like the Cancer Research Group and whatever and so forth. So we got to start changing our mindset and thinking how we do things and find efficiencies for the better and try to avoid all of these things that are happening. And again, we got to be proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah, and of course, I suppose now, and I'm not sure about your feelings on this, but there seems to be a stability at the helm now, because we went a number of years where there didn't seem to be much stability there, and people were coming and going for different reasons, of course, and you need to be on top of these things. You need to have somebody that's in a position that they have a good handle on it. And then, of course, the first things that we're seeing cuts to programming and cuts to different things that are being done, buildings being closed, and all this sort of stuff, and I'm not sure what the timelines are on those. And I think they're cutting the program they had in England, of course, and all of that. But at the end of the day, you would almost think that a full and exhaustive review of where every nickel is going would be the start of the process, rather than just the slash and burn sort of approach. I don't know how you feel about that, but it's a big entity, and it's an important entity, and it's one that we're very proud of here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Of course, Memorial University is an incredible gem, and we're lucky to have it. And and I know that we talk about tuition and so forth, but the tuition fees over there, of course, are better than most in the country. Maybe not better than all, but still, it's a reasonable way to get through to get your certainly your degree and to move on to wherever you want to. But anyways, Daryl, thank you very much for calling. It's an important issue, and hopefully we'll see us all doing better in the future.
Right, and Darren, I'd like to sum up as well. If we had things done right in this province with all the resources we got, the hydro, mining, forestry, we got all the resources. If that was managed right and properly, you wouldn't have to cut no programs. As a matter of fact, if things are done right, like places like Qatar and all that, they pay no taxes because everything's all in the revenue from in that case, their natural gas and so forth. That all the resources we got, it don't make sense. We should be millions of dollars in the bank, and people shouldn't have to be paying no taxes or nothing, and you wouldn't have to worry about all this problem. So we got to start looking at our resources, focus on our resources and the revenue that we could be getting from it. Look at Norway, for example, with their oil. I mean, that's a good example there, and all the 80% is going back into their country and we're a province. But we got to start looking at this, because when you get all this revenue coming in with all our resources, then it's like domino effects. Then you got funding for money. You could fix up your buildings and healthcare or whatever. So this is where we got to start looking at things.
As they say, Daryl, as they say, you ain't wrong. And I got to go to the news now. Thank you very much for calling. It's great to hear your thoughts. And I'm going to turn things over to the news for the 10 o'clock news, and we'll be back shortly on Open Line.
Okay, thank you very much, Darren. All the best to you and your listening audience and staff at VOCM. Have a great day.
Welcome back to Open Line. I'm your host, Darren Bent, and we're going to go to Charlie on line 2. Charlie, good morning. Welcome to Open Line.
Darren, you're in fine form this morning.
I don't know.
Darren, I'd like to ask you, I was listening to Sheila O'Leary this morning regarding Newfoundland power bonuses. So I was doing some checking on some salaries of executives, and I compared Newfoundland Power and New Brunswick Power Corporation. I think they would be somewhat an equal comparison. Would you agree?
I will say relative.
Yes. Well, in Newfoundland, our executive, I'm not even counting bonuses there, the top executive Newfoundland Power was close to 1,400,000. And then the next one, I haven't got the figures in total. I have New Brunswick here, but the second one in Newfoundland was around 800,000, and then 600, and then 500. So I wish I'd written down the figures, but that's close enough. So I looked up the key executives for New Brunswick Power. Guy by the name of Keith Cronkite. He in 2022 he was between 600,000 and 624. But the current one, Laurie Clark, current CEO, it says between 350,000 and 374,000. Now, if you compare Laurie Clark with the Newfoundland one, you're talking about $1 million more for the CEO. And I'm wondering, how can that ever be justified in terms of size or in terms of job description? I'd like to know what the job description is.
Yeah.
They certainly, their engineers solve the problems that come up. They've got the technicians for that, and they've got for the people on the line, of course. And the financial people, they have those. So what in the heck do you think those guys at the top do to command such a salary? And why is there such a big difference in Newfoundland and New Brunswick?
One thing I do know, Charlie, is it's always fun to talk about other people's money, especially when you're talking top executives with the salaries they make. I suppose we would need to know what the contract is for the New Brunswick equivalent, how it works. Is there different bonuses that come in throughout the year? Is that a base? Do they fully report in the number that you saw what the actual number is? And maybe in Newfoundland that they do and they don't there. I don't know. But if it is apples compared to apples, then yeah, it's a good question. But if it's not, and I don't know that it's not, then we would probably need a fuller scope on it. I don't begrudge anybody the money that they get, and I know that in a lot of these times, Charlie, it is competitive to get people to do these roles. But I sit down in the evening and I watch a baseball player paid to run around bases make $40 million a year and go, what? I don't even think about that. I just watch the game. And so when I go home in the evening, I know some of these executives are making big money, but as long as the lights come on, I don't care. When the lights aren't on, now I'm concerned about it. So, but it's a solid question. I'd like to know if it's equal comparison though or not, Charlie.
I feel it is equal comparison from what I've known about these companies over the years, and I would say to get somebody in Newfoundland for 500,000 who's qualified and competent wouldn't be very hard at all. In Newfoundland, we have a sort of a background of paying executives. The Muskrat Falls is the one I can think of. The bonuses they got for failing us all, and it just seems to be totally out of whack. And we keep voting in PC and Liberal. I think if we did have an NDP group in there, they might take a closer look at some of these things. It's just completely out of whack. Anyway,
we're definitely all paying for it. That's for sure, Charlie. It's all going out in the power bills, and it's all part of what they get approved at PUB. I would assume, and therefore they can go ahead and do as they like after they have the approvals.
I'd very much like to see the job description of a top executive of Newfoundland Power, and I'm going to work on trying to get that.
Yep.
Very, very cushy and very highly paid. Anyway, I want to go to the nuclear codes.
Okay.
When Trump said he would bomb Iran back to the Stone Age, I thought the only way he could do that would be to use nuclear bombs, right? And of course, I said he's not going to do that. And I read this story a couple of days ago, and I haven't been able to find anything on it since, that there was a big brouhaha between him and the chief army guy. He wanted the codes, and he was refused them. I'd like to know more about that, but the fact that he would want the codes is kind of scary. But anyway, that guy hasn't been fired yet, as far as I know. But isn't that kind of scary that fellow would want his hands on the nuclear codes? Why would he want them? You know?
Yeah, no, it's an odd situation. Of course, it's an odd and evolving situation down there. I'll tell you what. Here's my question about all of this, and I don't know what the comparison is, but there's probably somebody out there that does know. We don't hear about it because the news only moves towards the future. It doesn't move towards the past very often. But Obama had a deal with Iran, yes. And there's a whole pile of money changed hands there with regards to some of the things that had happened previously between the two countries. And of course, Trump set out to eliminate anything that Obama had touched in the past, and that was one of them. And of course, killed that arrangement. And now I wonder, what did we hear? Hagstaff asking for $200 billion for the war effort in Iran. I wonder what the cost is financially and in human life and suffering. So, when we compare the two, it would be interesting to have somebody break that down for us. But the only thing that I know is that it seems that it depends on where J.D. Vance is in the world, whether the gas prices are going up or down in Newfoundland and Labrador. A few days ago, he was heading to Pakistan to work out a deal. Price went down. Next day, it was paused. Price went up. Price went up again today. It's almost, where's Waldo? We ought to do a where's J.D. Vance. Maybe that'll tell us what's going to happen the next day in the gas price world.
Well, it's interesting that the deal he'll finally get, because he won't get his hands on the nuclear stuff. We can be sure of that. And if he did, they can produce more. The final deal will probably look like an Obama-type deal regarding sanctions and relief and reparations. And what have we gained? He tore it up. We were then back to Iran enriching the stuff, and now we're going to have a deal that's probably weaker than the Obama deal, all because one man, his ego said, Obama can't do that. I'm the peace guy here, right?
Yeah, and the price is not just financial, is it? The price is in human lives. It's in infrastructure. It's in American lives, too. Charlie, I'm up against a break. Thank you for calling this morning. Great to talk to you, and some interesting subjects. I'm sure that it could go on and on and on, but I can't let that happen. So we're going to go to break now. Charlie, thank you. Have a great day, and we'll be back on Open Line in just a few moments.
Okay, thank you, Darren. Bye-bye.
Welcome back to Open Line. I'm your host, Darren Bent, and we are going now to line one, where I have the Shadow Minister for Energy and Mines, Fred Hutton, MHA Conception Bay East, Bell Island. Welcome to the show, Fred.
Morning, Darren. How are you doing, sir?
Not too bad. We don't know each other, do we? We have to do full disclosure on this?
I was just thinking about that. We worked together for about 24 years at a TV station locally.
There you go. CJON.
That's right.
What can I help you with this morning?
Darren.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about a couple of things. Baden Nord, if we have time to chat about it briefly, but also most prominently the April 30th deadline for the Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU on Churchill Falls. It's coming up very soon. It's next week, 7 days away. There have been no talks basically since the writ was dropped back in September. We were sort of this close to doing a deal, or getting to see some definitive agreements. There was no actual financial obligation signed when the MOU was signed 15 or 16 months ago. This was, okay, we're going to agree to continue to talk. And by April 30th of 2026, we'll come back with definitive agreements. Both sides will, agree on what they're going to do, and then the parties will look at whether or not we would sign it. None of those talks have been ongoing. They've been halted. while this, and I will say, so-called independent review is been going on.
And Fred, you mean the talks between our province and Quebec?
Right, yeah, and Hydro-Quebec and Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro.
Sure, yep.
And make no mistake, I mean, you covered this as a journalist for many years, as I did. There was no way to do this without the political will. Former governments had tried to get this changed in the Supreme Court of Canada, in the Superior Court in Quebec, in the upper chambers. They would not agree to do any changes. The deal was the deal, according to Hydro-Quebec, and they weren't going to change it. Now, obviously, they do need the power. They've made it very clear they need electricity. Everybody does. Everybody's trying to do this green transition. My fear in all of this is that because of outside influences and the fact that, Danny Williams, and I'll just say it, does not want to do a deal with Quebec. He's convinced the PC party now not to do this. And, we're gonna let Nova Scotia eat our lunch again. And we're just, for the sake of not doing a deal with Quebec, let the clock run out. And then Premier Wakeham, who has never once said whether or not he is in favor of or against the MOU, he said he wants to wait for this so-called independent review to come back. And, Danny Williams was on media widely saying that it was his greatest single accomplishment in politics, canceling this deal and getting it killed. But Tony Wakeham wouldn't wouldn't say whether or not it's actually killed. He said people have had lots to say about it, including Mr. Williams, but wouldn't shoot down the fact of what Williams had said. So, it just seems to me that they're trying to run out the clock. The independent panel, the so-called independent panel, is going to come back, say it's not a good deal for us. Tony Wakeham will look at them and go, okay, well, we're not even going to bother doing a referendum. They're saying it's not a good deal because of X, Y, and Z. And, we'll try to develop it somehow else. But this opportunity is going to pass us by.
Yeah,
my bigger fear.
And if I could, Fred, just on that, and you said,
Sure.
This taking so long, it would come down to political will. And of course, in the background of all this or the lack of anything happening on this end other than the review that we're waiting on, is the political situation in Quebec is evolving. And as you know, the CAQ that your government worked with to get to the final play here has a new leader, and early polling showed that there was a resurgence, I suppose, of the Liberal Party. Both the Liberals and the CAQ have expressed positively towards the MOU. The Parti Québécois has not, in an absolute not sort of way. But now it seems that the Liberals and CAQ are, the numbers are changing now that they have a new leader, that if there was a minority government in Quebec, if that were possible, and it's starting to seem unlikely again, that there would be enough of a coalition that support would continue. Does that bolster any of this for you? Does that matter to you, that there may be some political will remaining in Quebec after the election, unless, of course, the Parti Québécois gets a majority?
It absolutely does matter. I mean, what happens there politically? As I mentioned, in 1972, when Frank Moores, a conservative premier, became the premier of Newfoundland after Quebec, or after Joey Smallwood, the first thing he said was, we got to change that deal. It's a bad deal. Successive premiers who've been there longer than just the short-term ones have tried in some way, shape, or form to change this deal and have failed through court action, through whatever, political will. Finally, there was a deal done. Not a deal, a final deal, but a memorandum of understanding to try to reach a deal. I want to be clear on the wording there, because there was no final deal done yet. But we don't even know if we're going to get to that point, because Tony Wakeham, the premier of the province now, says that there is no April 30th deadline, but clearly in the MOU, which is only a 37-page document, fairly easy to read, same one that says there's an escalator clause in there, Schedule F, that April 30th is the deadline, unless mutually agreed upon by both parties to extend it. And I know he's spoken to Christine Frechette, the new premier of Quebec. Premier Wakeham said that last week after she was sworn in. They chatted, but he has not told us or has not answered questions we've asked on whether or not he's actually asked for an extension. So this creates tremendous uncertainty. Questions, in Labrador West, Labrador City and Wabush are so eager for extra power up there. They've got billions and billions of dollars waiting to be invested in their area. They can't expand because they don't have electricity. It's so ironic that they're so close to Muskrat Falls and Churchill Falls, and they can't expand. They can't build a new industrial park there because they have no electricity. And the fear is that if we push this down the road another few years, we're going to be waiting even longer. Or maybe Quebec will do something else. I'm sure they have a plan B if they actually do need that much electricity right away. Sure. And I just heard your previous caller, Charlie, talk about, pay scales for power executives. And my take on all of that yesterday with the PMR was this is more about an affordability crisis for people. And whether or not, you said people love to look at what other folks are making and dream about how they could, do whatever they had with all that extra money. But, think about this. Every year, because of Muskrat Falls, this government, our government previously, and this government now, they have to spend $500 million a year to keep a $300 electricity bill from going to $527. That's basically to pay for Muskrat Falls.
Yeah, and Fred, that's a shocking number, and I think unfortunately, I think that number doesn't resonate a whole lot around the dinner table because it's such a far-fetched number. I think the only way that would resonate is if that were removed, and then the power bill came the next month, and to find out what the difference would be. But look, let me put this to you, because in fairness, you folks, the Liberals ran an election, you lost to the Conservatives. And of course, and we've heard it over the years, that there's a belief that Quebec took us on this first deal. And in hindsight, they absolutely ran all the way to the bank, laughing with all the money that we could have had if there had been a percentage, negotiated in the original deal. And of course, that has led to somewhat of an anti-Quebec sentiment in the province and a mistrust of the Quebec side of this, that if we have a deal with Quebec, they're doing us somehow. Is that something that, it's going to be difficult to battle that sentiment in a lot of areas of the province, is it not?
It is, and I'll address that in just 1 second. You talked about the power bills, how those numbers are too big to comprehend. We will comprehend them in 2030 when rate mitigation runs out, because the $5.2 billion that Andrew Furey and his government negotiated with the federal government, the Hibernian money, come down, and then instead of us using that for roads or schools or paying people, we have to put it on rate mitigation to keep power rates down. That runs out in 2030. So without a Churchill Falls agreement and without that rate mitigation money, bills will go up. That scares me, and it scares my constituents. With respect to the anti-Quebec sentiment, absolutely. But at a certain point in time, we have to move beyond that. And because in 2041, that border between Quebec and Labrador will still be there. And what will happen is, unless somebody can figure out a way to get that electricity, then when you're at your house in CBS and you flick on your light, that electricity has to come all the way from the central part of Labrador. And it's a transmission issue then. So if we're planning to transmit another 4,000 kilowatts of power down across the strait, down the southwest coast, and across to Nova Scotia again, it's going to be really, really expensive to whoever has to buy it on the other end of it.
Yeah.
Unless somebody pays for it. And it's either going to be Ottawa or is it to do a deal with Quebec? Because we have to assume that there won't be a power corridor permitted through Quebec. I mean, unless something else majorly changes. So the concern there is that, by 2030, our power bills are going to go through the roof. But also, if we don't do a deal with Quebec at some point in time, or they're involved somehow, how are we going to do this?
Fred, like the rest of us,
didn't know this resource existed.
Yes.
It's been there for decades. And people need the electricity. We just got to figure out how to get it out of there. Otherwise, it's a stranded resource.
Fred, like the rest of us, we're going to sit on the sidelines, I guess, and wait with bated breath over the next 7 or 8 days to see where this thing finally ends up, to see if what you're saying actually plays out the way that you and the party have been saying for a few months, or is there a silver lining of some sorts with regards to this, or can there be one? Anyways, Fred, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much. I know you're back in the house this afternoon, I suppose, so enjoy the back and forth there, and good talking to you this morning.
Thanks. And if I may just say one final point, we want them to get this deal. We want the Conservatives to get the deal, and we'll support it if they get it.
All right. Thanks, Fred. Have a good day. And
Thanks, Darren.
All right, take care. All right, I'm moving to line 3. We got Walter on line 3. Walter, good morning.
And a very good morning to you, sir. First time I've chatted with you. Thank you very much for these couple of minutes. I appreciate it.
No worries. What's on your mind?
I wanted to bring up one little issue, but before that, I just listened to that conversation like everybody else did. And this is not to be rude or anything like that. It's not to be rude whatsoever. But there is a disconnect between the way some MHAs talk to media and then how some MHAs talk to their colleagues in the House of Assembly. I would suggest that if they all would leave their grade 7 mentality behind in the House of Assembly and talk to each other like Mr. Hutton just talked, to each other in the House of Assembly, we might get a bit more done. Now, I hope that doesn't sound rude, but I wanted to get that off my chest. Darren, I just wanted to give a call. The Waterford Valley Rotary is in plans to do a Waterford River cleanup, and that's going to be sometime in early June. 2 gentlemen that I've had an opportunity to work with now, Mr. Mark Rice from the city of Mount Pearl, and Mr. Tom Davis, Councillor Tom Davis from City of St. John's. They're great stewards and protectors of our tributaries and rivers, and they go out of their way on their own time to pick up litter all the time. They're not looking for any kind of recognition. All they're looking for is results. So I have the greatest of respect for those 2 individuals, and I don't mind saying it publicly. If anybody wanted to assist the Waterford Valley Rotary in cleaning up the Waterford River, the dates will be finalized, and of course we'll do our best to get it out, not only on the social media but also on Open Line, I think, which is one of the best ways to get some information out. And as we all know, I think that a clean city is a healthier city, and a clean waterways is great for the fish and the ducks and for the environment itself. So when the dates get a bit closer, if you don't mind, I'd like to call back and just confirm it, and perhaps we can get a dozen or 2 dozen people to join us and make this a great effort.
All right, and of course the Waterford Rotary has done great work over the years with regards to this project. So, Walter, thank you very much for calling, letting everyone know. And I know Councillor Davis mentioned it, I believe, a couple of days ago as well. So good on him and all of the people out there, Mark and Mount Pearl and all of them. So thank you very much, and you take care.
Appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.
All right, we're going to go to break now. We'll be back in just a few moments with Open Line. Welcome back to Open Line. I'm your host, Darren Bent, and I'm going to turn to line 1 where I have Yvette Coffey. She is the president, of course, of the Registered Nurses Union, Newfoundland and Labrador. Yvette, welcome to Open Line.
Good morning, Darren.
I know we're going to talk about a budget wish list and expectations and hopes for the future for nurses, and we're going to probably touch on a little bit of core care. But I gotta throw this at you at the beginning, and I apologize for catching you maybe, but I know you know this intimately. But we heard a gentleman on this morning who took his mother, who suffers with a bit of dementia, to the emergency room, sat there for 6 hours. Their case hadn't progressed, and then had to take her home. She was in a worse mental state than when she arrived, and they were both in tears leaving the building. When you hear stuff like this in the health system, and of course, everybody that's working there wants everything to work well for people, and they're truly caring and compassionate, empathetic people. But when you hear stories like this from how the system is set up and how your nurses and other people, doctors and all that in the system are doing the best they can, yet we hear stories like this. What do you think of it?
I just think it's really sad. My mom passed away with Alzheimer's too, and I can tell you, watching the system going in even to the long-term care facilities and looking and seeing you had your personal care attendants, your licensed practical nurses, your registered nurses, and almost every Sunday when I would go there, they'd all be discussing who's staying for the 24-hour shift. And it's a systemic issue. In the emergency department, they're trying to see the most emergent patients. You hear tell, even, people with the frail, the elderly, women having miscarriages, all end up in that emergency department. And there is no room, there's no capacity. We still have ambulances trying to offload their patients and can't get to because there's nowhere for the admitted patients to go. It's been something, we've talked about it at the Health Accord, and I did hear one of your callers this morning talk about Health Accord NL. and prevention versus the treatment, and where we have medicalized healthcare instead of preventing healthcare issues. And the overtime, the working short, if we don't fix the systemic issues by staffing up, addressing the workplace issues, the violence, the overcrowding in the emergency departments, and we should have a stream for the elder care. And that's something that Health Coordinator talked about, was having a geriatric trained nurse practitioner in the emergency rooms throughout Newfoundland and Labrador. We're getting there slowly, but it's going to take time and investment in the healthcare system.
Yeah, and just the structural area of the emergency down there, it's not designed for what is actually happening down there. We heard a story last week. Someone had gone down there, and there were homeless people showing up there for different things, and maybe even at some point trying to stay out of the cold and so forth. Being a healthcare facility, they're there. There are security staff there that are trying to help with issues as well, and of course all the health professionals that are there. It must be incredibly difficult for nurses to go home after seeing what they know is happening, that they can't fix themselves individually. It must be terribly frustrating and have a negative effect on their health care as well.
Well, it's certainly causing moral distress for nurses and other healthcare providers, because we're not getting to do what we were trained to do. We were trained to look at our patients holistically, to look at their socioeconomic status, and to assess their support systems at home and everything, and try to get at prevention versus treatment. And that's not what we're doing. Instead, we're triaging. It's like the triage nurse in the emergency room. You're triaging to see who's the most critical, who's the most urgent, that got to be seen, like, right away. They go home, and I've heard them talk about it. They are frustrated. They are defeated. That's how they feel, because they feel they haven't done enough for the patients. And it's totally out of their control because of the overcrowding, the lack of primary health care resources. I could talk about that forever when it comes to primary health care in this province. But if we don't get back to basics and looking after our geriatric society, our elderly population, because that's us. We're all becoming the elderly population.
Yeah. And of course, that exposes us to all kinds of different things that can happen as we age, and of course it adds to the pressure, and something got to give. These long waits can't go on, and of course that takes me to the next subject matter, Yvette. Budget coming out. Are you hopeful? What are you looking for? What would you like to see just to get some of this down the road?
So we've been very clear with this new government, with the Premier, what needs to be done, and there needs to be investment in healthcare. And this government, they lobbied, they campaigned on rural Newfoundland and making sure that we looked after healthcare. There's an investment in healthcare. And I always say, if you take healthcare out of a community, it's resettlement by stealth. Because if you don't have access to healthcare, people leave, because they have to with the aging population. What we're saying is safe staffing saves patients, saves lives, it saves healthcare, and it saves nurses. And it's the mental health and that we were just talking about. We have put in a proposal, and we've discussed this with the Premier, and he's very supportive of it. It's a provincial travel team. So it's unionized people, nurses, in the healthcare system, in the public healthcare system. So we're cutting out the middleman, the private agencies that are getting paid upwards of $400 for an hour for nurses. We're cutting them out, so we're decreasing the cost. So it's efficiencies that we're finding in the healthcare system. And like I said, they are permanent positions or temporary or casual. They will be positions within our bargaining unit that nurses can apply on within Newfoundland and Labrador. We still got our travel locums going to Labrador, because we do know we cannot disadvantage Labrador or the Northern Peninsula, because it is so hard to recruit up there, right?
Yeah, no,
That's
absolutely.
One. And the other one is nurse practitioners and expanding that role and getting back to the primary health care. If we want to get at the systemic issues in healthcare, we have to follow the health court. We have to increase access to primary health care. And part of that solution is allowing nurse practitioners to have their clinics, to have the autonomy within the public healthcare system to be able to manage their own schedule so they can go and do locums in Twillingate, in Harbour Breton, wherever the need is in rural, remote Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yvette, I'd like to dig into this just a little bit longer, but I got to go to break now. Do you mind holding on till after the break and we can continue the chat?
Sure, no problem.
Yvette, you hold on there. We're going to go to break. We'll be back on Open Line in just a moment. Welcome back to Open Line. I'm your host, Darren Bent, and I have on the line the president of the Registered Nurses Union of Newfoundland and Labrador, Yvette Coffey, and we are talking about health professionals, nurses, being able to use all their skills, all they've been trained for to help the people of this province. I had Keith Bailey, a pharmacist, on last week. He's saying the same thing from their profession. Yvette, how important and how beneficial would it be for the nurses to be able to use their skills in a way that would expand what they're able to do now under the way the system works?
Well, if we look at the health court and we look at historically nursing in general, we had nurses in the schools. So nurses in the schools that students could go to on any given day, whether it be counseling, whether it be referral to see someone, or just to talk to them, or look at bumps, or answer questions about, puberty and, blah, blah, blah. But also about preventative side of healthcare and getting at young people when they're young, diagnosing, getting assessments done so that they're getting the most support and that they can possibly get so that they are thriving as adults. And that's something Health Accord talked about. It's that preventative upstream side of healthcare that we are not getting at. And we need to get back to that kind of healthcare and nursing in this province. We have public health nurses now. They don't have time to even be in schools. They go in, they do a discussion on sexuality or whatever, or they'll go in and talk about, reproduction and childbirth and everything. But they don't get in there on a regular basis because they're too busy doing the vaccinations, the flu shots, the COVID vaccinations. They don't have the time to do the stuff that public health is meant to do, and that is that upstream preventative side of healthcare. And then you get into the healthcare system. We have registered nurses now who are doing, are in the prescribing. They're doing the courses for that. They're doing suturing out in rural and remote areas. They're backslabbing, half a cast on patients out in rural and remote. But they're not getting any extra compensation for any of that either. And recognizing the role and responsibilities with compensation is another big thing and a big gap that we have here in this province. So investing in the people in the system and allowing them to work to their full scope of practice, registered nurses and nurse practitioners and other healthcare providers, was all part of the health court. It talked about that, in totality, everyone working to their full scope as teams. We're not individuals. We work as a team. I'm 30-something years nursing, and we've always worked as a team. And if you don't do that, we can't possibly benefit the people of Newfoundland and Labrador if we're working in silos.
Yeah, and when it comes to the compensation and the recognition for the work that is done, that is critical for, I suppose, morale among nurses, because we don't want trained nurses in Newfoundland and Labrador going, look, I'm doing the work, I'm doing this, I'm just not being paid for it. I could go somewhere else and get paid for doing this work, and it's what I want to do and it's what I love. But I just can't do it under the circumstances, and it's critical not to lose nurses, isn't it?
Well, we still have 350 nursing vacancies as of January of this year, according to stats from government. We are recruiting the students, but we got to do better with students. We should be supporting students financially, especially when they're doing their clinical placements, because they are helping us out big time, giving us free labor, but they're paying to give us free labor with their clinicals. I've talked about that with the Premier and that too. But it's equal pay for equal work. You've heard us talk about nurses in Clarenceville, chemotherapy nurses, getting paid a lower rate of pay than nurses in St. John's, Grand Falls, Gander, etc., who are giving chemotherapy. I mean, and they keep putting their hands up and saying, well, that's the job classification system. Well, I call BS on that. First of all, I don't like that job classification system. It does not evaluate nursing the way it should be evaluated. But also, the employer, NLHS, and government have a role to play here, and they could fix that with the stroke of a pen. But what we need is the willingness for people at these levels, with the government and with NLHS, to make that happen. And we have the core staffing review that's underway. We got a report coming out the end of this month. And the Premier already committed that once that report comes out, he would implement the recommendations within 6 months. So something else we're looking for in the upcoming budget.
Yvette, thank you for your time this morning. A great discussion. Thank you for highlighting the concerns and, of course, the feelings of nurses within the system and what they're seeing. And, of course, I know you're going to be at the House of Assembly when they bring down the budget next week, and you'll be looking very closely for the acknowledgement of some of the things that you've been meeting with government on. And, all the best for that. Thank you again for your time. You take care.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, Yvette Coffey, Registered Nurses Union President. We're going to go to line 3 now where we have Harold. Harold, good morning and welcome to Open Line.
Good morning.
How can I help you this morning, Harold? Yes, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. I've just heard about all the hullabaloo this morning about the minister with the AI images.
Yep.
Yeah, no, she was showing disrespect to our veterans.
Yeah, sure, yep.
Okay. Well, the real problem is, I just saw this yesterday. Memorial University is currently hiring 5 tenured professors.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of their stipulations is you must identify as a member of one or more employment equity groups, including women, 2S, LGBT, Indigenous, etc. White males need not apply.
Okay. It says that specifically on the notice?
It says you must be one of these employment equity groups.
Yeah. Does it explain why? Is it a funding issue? Is it a specific type of funding that they're getting for the positions, or is it? Is there any explanation at all?
No. My point is, yesterday there was a nationally broadcast radio show, and they brought this up, and they're laughing at us. Memorial University is named after these people that went and fought for our country, and now those same people need not apply for this job. How is that fair in any way?
Yeah, no, that's something the university would have to answer for. There's no doubt about that. I'm not sure how these postings or what have you work, or why it's stipulated one way or another. But still, there would have to be an explanation for that from the university for sure.
Well, we know what the explanation is. It's the progressive times we're living in. But, I mean, this is ridiculous. The whole country's laughing at us. Yesterday it was broadcast right through the country, laughing at us about this advertisement that they put online.
Yeah, I think I'd like to have more explanation from the university as to what's going on there, to see what the goods of it are. Whether the country's laughing at us or not, I'm not sure. But certainly, if there's something controversial, with a specific, you got to meet a specific criteria. I get it if you got to have a certain background with regards to education and all of that. But whether your gender or ethnicity is an issue for hiring, that doesn't sit on an even scale on the surface of it. But however, I would like to hear from the university on that, see what they got to say about it. It's certainly, I understand it would raise the ire of a lot of people to see something like that and wonder why. But I'd like to know why.
Yeah, I know why. It's because of, where we are today and with progressive politics and the politically correct thing that we're all about. I have an official piece of paper from Memorial University, and it's saying this. Yes, it wants qualifications, of course, but you could be qualified out to yin-yang. And if you're a white, straight male, you need not apply. It says clearly here in this advertisement.
Yeah.
There's no getting around it.
So we'll reach out to Memorial University and see what they got to say about it and see if we can get an answer on that.
I got the answer right here in my hand.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Martin Luther King, and he said every man should be judged by his character, not the color of his skin. And that's what we're doing with this ad.
Yeah,
it's disgusting.
Harold, I hear your point. It's something we need to look into. I thank you for calling and raising it, and we'll have a look and see what's being said with regards to Memorial University and what their reasoning for this is, and see what their explanation is, and we'll go from there. Harold, I'm up against the news. Thank you for calling. You have a great day. It's 11 o'clock. Dave, you take us away to the news.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to Open Line. I'm your host, Darren Bent, and we're going to line 4 now with Natasha. Natasha, welcome to Open Line.
Hi, thank you for having me.
How you doing this morning, Natasha? What can you tell us?
I'm good, thank you. Calling about the road conditions leading to Harbour Mill, Little Harbour East. We had a presentation yesterday of our petition in the House of Assembly, and I just wanted to express how deeply disgusted I was by the reaction of the opposition interrupting while our representative was trying to portray our voices. It's been 35 years since we've had any kind of upgrade to our infrastructure roads in our community. They're not even existing anymore. Parts of the road are literally gone. You have to go to the other side. We're a predominantly senior community with no access to anything. We don't even have a store here. Traveling these roads are treacherous. I don't know what else to say other than during a presentation of a petition, it's my belief that all the members sitting in that house should give respect to whoever is representing. Mr. Pike yesterday was using our voices. It was our signatures. And for the opposition to interrupt him while he was speaking, our voices, was disrespectful to Newfoundland and Labradorians.
Yeah, I heard the back and forth between the member and I believe the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, and of course there was a lot of noise in the background while all of this was going on. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. Yes, it is. That's absolutely what I'm referring to. Yeah, and he was raising the issue about the road and the road work up there that needed to be done. I think the response from the minister is that, it's disingenuous to be bringing it up because they were in power for 10 years and it didn't get fixed. But here we are now. How long has this road needed upgrades? 35 years. We don't even get patchwork on our roads. I can't even tell you the last time. So the road was upgraded 35 years ago, or no, it wasn't? I'm just trying to get a sense of that. It has not been upgraded in 35 years since any road work was done. I believe the pavement itself was put in about 45 years ago. And we've seen nothing, like not even a pothole filled for 35 years. Last year, the budget was in place to pave from Jacksfontein to Little Bay East. Little Bay East was granted an extension after the fact. Harbour Mill was left out of that budget with a promise to see new pavement this year. I think it was disingenuous of the minister to say that we weren't deserving, basically, to call our voices and our concerns
not valid. That's basically how I felt, and I know the rest of our community. We had a representative from the community sitting in the House of Assembly yesterday who was absolutely deflated to have to sit there and listen to the disrespect being given to our petition. That was not Paul Pike's words. Those were ours. It was like a slap in the face to our community.
Yeah, and it was a big ruckus back and forth, and of course that always gets the attention now today from the question period. I think the minister did say that they would review all roads, or all roads would be reviewed, and he would take guidance from his staff on that, and that's probably the normal way of doing things. But you're saying you're not even getting potholes filled. That's that's unusual, I suspect. But is that the case? Like they're not even coming out even any time during the year and filling anything?
I think recently, a couple of weeks ago, after it was said that NTV News was going to be here to represent our community and our cries for help from the government, they did come fill one major. However, it was filled during a rainstorm, and it's still probably the worst one on the road.
Yeah, they were probably going everywhere filling holes after that rainstorm. Yeah. I think I saw a few in my area as well. But even last year, all of last year, no potholes filled, hey?
Nothing, absolutely nothing. I'd like to point out, too, that Little Harbor East is a tourist destination. Just last week, Newfoundland Travel Tourism shared a picture of that beautiful community that holds an iconic Friars Rock. It's been photographed by people all over the world, and it's a very known, iconic landmark on the Burin Peninsula. How does Newfoundland Tourism and the government boast this year so much about travel and tourism, knowing that the road leading to this iconic rock is treacherous to travel? We're expected to do it daily, but you're now inviting other people into the community. Do you understand the impact that it has on our tourism? Our community thrives on tourism. It's unfair to us to leave us out. We are the only area in the Bay Largent Route 212 that was not paved. It's fiscally irresponsible on everyone's part, as far as I'm concerned, to bring equipment here last year and leave a 9-kilometer stretch in the area undone.
Yes, it seems unusual that a road gets ignored like that. I know that I was out to I can't remember now what it was, the Trinity area a few years ago, and one of the roads out to one of the historic areas out there, I think the film shoot site was in incredibly bad shape. You had to go around potholes in the middle of the road right in high tourist season. So that can be frustrating. And of course, if the experience of tourists going to areas like this is bad, do they come back? What do they tell people when they come back? Don't go out there. The road's bad. Watch your car, all that. None of it helps the area. And of course, it must be incredibly frustrating for people that live in the area. Natasha, did you want to finish up with any comments before I move on?
No, I'd just like to thank you for your time, and I hope that the members of the House of Assembly can conduct themselves a little more professionally during petition readings, giving it's not the representative reading the words, but the community's words that are being spoken in the House of Assembly. That's our only source for our voices to be heard, and respect should be given when respect is due. That's
absolutely true. Thank you very much, Natasha. You have a great day, and I hope that you see some improvements in that road very soon. You take care.
Thank you so much.
All right.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, we're going to move along to line 6 now, and we're going to Julia Kent. And Julia is the Director of Advocacy and Community Relations with CAA Atlantic. Welcome to Open Line.
Hi, good morning.
Julia, there's a lot going on in the world that has people making decisions about what they're going to do, where they're going to travel, and all of that. What are you hearing and seeing at CAA Atlantic about what Atlantic Canadians, Newfoundlanders, and Labradorians are doing this travel season?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot going on in the world, but what is not changing and what is not different is Atlantic Canadians want to travel. So despite what we're seeing geopolitically and around the world, they are still traveling. We're seeing travel numbers up from previous years and even up from 2019 pre-pandemic. So that has not changed. What is changing, of course, is the destinations in some respects. So, for example, people that would normally go to Cuba are not going to Cuba anymore. And what we're seeing is they are going to places like the Dominican or other warm destinations that are similar. A lot of questions were at one time about Mexico. We're seeing that people are still going to Mexico if they had Mexico planned. There was just a very short span there where people had to reschedule or change their travel plans with regards to Mexico. But we're also seeing places like Jamaica. Cruises are up right now. So long and the short of it is, despite what's happening in the world, Atlantic Canadians are still traveling this spring.
Yeah, no, and that's great. And I know a lot of friends and people that I see, they're sending pictures out on their socials from somewhere that looks a lot warmer than where we are right now. They are going south still. Mexico, and we heard it the other day, and it may change a little bit for Mexico, hey, because we've got a Canadian tourist who has died at a tourist off-resort site. And I know a number of years ago, I was fortunate enough to go to Mexico, and I did one of those excursions to, I can't remember, I think it's called Chichen Itza or whatever, some Mayan ruins down there. Fabulous to see, but then now you're going to be worried about doing stuff like that, aren't you?
Well, there's always a concern, when you do any sort of excursion in a foreign country. But I would urge travelers to really look to the Government of Canada Travel Advisory's website for any sort of travel concerns about their destination. So you can look it up by country, and it will tell you from levels 1 to 4 how much you should be worried about that destination. But also it breaks it down by the region within the country. So you can even look at the specific city or province that you're going to and see what the risks are and what the concerns are and what you should be aware about. So I would urge any travelers to be in the know about their destination and to be prepared for what could happen. That is the same regardless of where you're going, not just down south, but anywhere in the world. Okay,
Julia, I'm hard against a break here. I'm going to go to the break. I'm going to ask you to hang on here because there's a few other things I want to talk to you about when it comes to travel, and it's something that a lot of the listeners now are interested in, what you have to say about choices and things to do and good tips for travel. I'll get you to hang on if you could.
No problem.
All right. We're going to be back in just a couple of minutes. We'll be back after the break with more Open Line. Well, welcome back to Open Line. I'm your host, Darren Bent. And on the line, we have Julia Kent with CAA Atlantic. And Julia, you did mention before, when we're talking about travel and how the world is affecting people's travel plans, you mentioned Cuba and, of course, what's happening with the U.S. and the fuel shortages in Cuba. And Cuba, I've talked to friends that say when they go to Cuba, everybody at the resort pretty much is an Atlantic Canadian. So that makes a big change for people in this end of the country's travel, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And so what we're seeing for people that normally go to Cuba is we're recommending comparably as a destination and price-wise Dominican Republic. However, we are also seeing that cruise sales have drastically increased this year. And what's interesting about that is that cruise sales are up, but the time spent before and after in the U.S., before embarkation of a cruise and afterwards at debarkation, that's down. So people are spending less time in the U.S. in general, or at least that's what the numbers are indicating.
Yeah, so in the past, people would go down probably for, going on a cruise and then come back and stay for a week in the Orlando area or go to St. Pete's or whatever. And it's kind of using it as a port of getting on and getting off and leaving. That's what you're seeing, eh?
Yes, that's exactly it. And so in addition to cruises being up, but noticeably less time spent in the U.S. pre or post-cruise, we are seeing interest in Europe and other destinations. When we talk about the cost of living, it's drastically less expensive to go to Europe, and we're finding that the dollar goes a lot farther in Europe at this time. So that's where a lot of people are flocking to and just trying to make the most of whatever money they have set aside for travel this spring, regardless.
Yeah, we're seeing some direct flights from Newfoundland right to Paris and some other places, I think England as well. That helps when you don't have to backtrack to Montreal and Toronto to go on flights to Europe. Where are the key places? And look, I think everybody I've ever run into has been to Portugal in the last 3 or 4 years. Is it still Portugal?
Portugal is definitely a popular spot, and it's gaining in popularity. But like you said, you hit the nail on the head there. Atlantic Canadians love those direct flights. They were even finding Newfoundlanders will go to Halifax and then go across the pond rather than to go backtrack to Montreal or Toronto or Ottawa and go across the pond, because it really felt counterintuitive to go backwards to have a longer flight to go forwards, right? So if there is a direct flight available, Atlantic Canadians will take it. We see those fill up immediately by Atlantic Canadians, and definitely are the top choice. So anywhere that is direct is popular for sure.
Yeah, and I suppose there are particular things that people should know for going to Europe. Are there things that they have to do in advance? We used to have to do all kinds of things during COVID when you're coming and going from different countries. But does Europe have anything where people have to plan the trip, a number of months or weeks ahead and make applications for any type of access or anything like that?
Well, I will say, if you're booking with a travel advisor, they will walk you through all that. So plug for our travel advisors at CAA. That's a really good
Absolutely,
option.
Yeah.
Or any travel advisor, quite frankly, will walk you through whatever is required for your destination. But in particular, we have seen some changes around the UK, the United Kingdom, and how they are dealing with occasional visitors. So make sure you do your homework and look into whatever is required at your destination. Every country is different. Every trip is different. So that is important to do, but a travel advisor will walk you through that.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier about the cruises, the big uptake in cruises. Is there anything that people should know about cruises that you can share with us that may not have taken a cruise in the past, or things to look for?
Well, it's funny you say that, because we're seeing, sales increase of trades of cruises right now, and typically there are people that are not typically cruisers. So maybe they go to Cuba and they're trying a cruise maybe for the first time. So it's a good question to ask. Personally, I have done 7 cruises, which is a lot when you come to cruise goers. But something that I really like about cruises is the food is exceptional. And I've cruised on many different cruise lines. The entertainment is exceptional. The service is exceptional, but you get to go to a different place every day. And I love that. The variety. It is less of your all-inclusive feel, the fly and flop that we talk about, but it's more an adventure style. But you can choose to get off the ship or not in any given port. So just know in advance you're going to get that really great food and entertainment, but it's going to have a different feel than a typical all-inclusive if that's what you're going for.
Okay, so we've talked about some exotic, tropical, and of course European destinations, but a lot of Canadians, Atlantic Canadians, are choosing to explore their own country, are they not?
Yes, actually, we're seeing a lot of within Canada travel, not necessarily just in the spring, but all year long, because our country really is set up to attract visitors at any given time. We think about Ottawa and the Ice Festival and the Canal and stuff like that. There's so many beautiful parts of the country to see. What we are anticipating, we're not seeing it yet, but we are anticipating that there will be less summer road trips because of the price of fuel at this time. And we haven't seen the impact necessarily as much as we could on air travel with the fuel price, but we have to be aware that may be coming and keep that in mind. But yes, we are seeing people explore their own backyard, particularly within Atlantic Canada. There's so much gorgeousness to see and so much that we haven't discovered yet personally. So we're there for CA members and the public if that's something they're interested in.
Yeah, and Julia, how important is it for the traveler, the price point? Are they doing a lot of comparisons for different places and trying to find the one that meets the budget? Or when people come in, are they just going, I'm going, I don't care?
Well, a little bit of both going on. Our numbers show that Atlantic Canadians want to travel. No matter what, they want to travel, and they're going to travel. However, there definitely is some penny pinching and some price comparisons going on when they're looking at their travel options. So life is, tight for everybody right now. We're all feeling the rising cost of living. Seemingly, paychecks are not increasing at the same rate as groceries or housing, for example. And we are seeing travel prices rise as well. We're talking hotels, the price of fuel for road trips, flights, you name it. So all of these things are taken into account. I think that the answer is two can be true. People want to travel, and they're going to travel no matter what, but they are super cost conscious when they do so.
Yeah, and they have to be mindful, I suppose, of what's going on and where they're going, because we're hearing it now. Like if you're going to the Toronto area in June, you got to be mindful that FIFA is going to be there, and hotel prices are up, and all kinds of things like that. So even flight prices are a little problematic at times. So to investigate, and I suppose your people are there to help, and you highly recommend that agents are employed. They have the background, the knowledge for all the little things that people may not think about when they're getting ready to go on that big vacation.
I definitely agree. The other thing I would recommend for travelers, particularly because we're in this uncertain geopolitical climate where we don't know what's going to happen with any given country at any given time, is to buy travel insurance. And this is, a little known thing that not everybody does. They think they only need it if they have health concerns or they're elderly. But we have a really great podcast on our CAA YouTube channel that, in 30 minutes kind of encapsulates what travel insurance is and what your options are. Long story short, it's totally customizable to you, to your trip, to whatever you want covered, but it's a really good peace of mind to have with you as we navigate this really uncertain world around the travel and the destinations we're looking at.
Okay, Julia, thank you very much for your time this morning. It was a very interesting subject matter, and I know a lot of people out there that are thinking about traveling and have been holding back because of what they're hearing are going to be very interested in some of that information. And I appreciate your time this morning. We're going to go to the break now, but take care and all the best on your next cruise.
Thank you so much.
All right. That's Julia Kent. She's with CAA Atlantic. We've got a few people in the hopper there now. We've got Naim Merchant. She's a director with the Carbon Removal Canada Group, and we're going to have her up next. A couple other people there. Hang on. We'll be back in just a moment on Open Line.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to Open Line. I'm your host, Darren Bent. And we had a call a little while ago questioning Memorial University's posting for hiring a tenured professor. And of course, the concern that they raised was who was the job open to. And it clearly states in the posting that the competition is open only to applicants who are current employees of Memorial University and identify as members of one or more employment equity group. And they list the groups. And of course, this has raised some concerns here on Open Line and of course in the newsroom. And the VOCM newsroom has reached out to Memorial University to get an explanation about the posting and to see what that's all about. And they're looking into that. And I just wanted to offer some updated information to a caller from yesterday. John called in from the Marystown area and he was questioning about the work for the Canning Bridge in that area. And it turns out that the province gave an update about a month ago regarding that the tender has been expanded to include some structure work on Ville Marie Drive as well as the bridge replacement. They expected the tender to be handed out and the work to get going sometime soon. So they expect the construction on the permanent bridge is expected to be completed by late 2028. So the temporary bridge will be there for a bit longer yet. Okay, we are now going to line 4 where we have Naim. And Naim, welcome to Open Line. Great to have you here.
Great to be with you, Darren.
Naim, so you're talking about Earth Day and some of the promises that Earth Day came with. Bring us up to date.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was Earth Day, as many people know, and one thing that kind of struck me was how we've kind of got this very incomplete message about what we need to do to address climate change. We're told kind of constantly that we need to be reducing emissions, and that's, really important. How we power our homes and get to work and all of these things, that there's lower carbon ways to do these things, that's great, but there's a big part of the equation that's been kind of missed out, and that's about removing the carbon pollution that's been accumulating in the atmosphere for the past, 150 years since kind of industrial activity really kicked off. So when we emit carbon into the atmosphere, it kind of just stays there, and it stays there for centuries. And so there's an entire kind of category of climate action called carbon dioxide removal, which is what we work on at Carbon Removal Canada, that is focused on, finding innovative ways to remove existing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, that carbon pollution, because that's ultimately what's causing climate change. It's not as much the emissions that we are, expelling every day, but the accumulation of it over centuries. And so, we've been really focused on trying to tell more people about, and especially policymakers about, including carbon dioxide removal as part of the equation in addressing climate change, that it's not just about reducing emissions, but removing what's accumulated over time.
So what you're talking about there, what's the harm? What's the problem that it's causing? Explain that for folks.
The problem with carbon dioxide removal has been that I think, folks that are involved in talking about climate change are worried that we're not going to do enough of the reducing emissions part if we start thinking about cleaning up carbon pollution. And unfortunately, the problem has just gotten so bad with climate change that we kind of have to do both. We have to reduce our emissions and we have to remove CO2 from the atmosphere. But this kind of this class of climate advocates that have kind of existed over the last 10, 20 years have kind of wanted to keep carbon dioxide removal out of the conversation because they're worried if people feel like, we can just clean up carbon after the fact, then we won't do the things that we need to do to reduce our emissions in the first place. And our message at Carbon Removal Canada is we need to do both because the problem's gotten so bad now that we can't just choose one path or the other.
Yeah, so how do we get down that road then? I mean, it's an expensive process, and do we have the technology that makes it reasonable to work on both at the same time?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have the technology to make this possible. And in fact, the most pioneering technology in the world across all of the different methods of doing carbon removal are being done here in Canada. And that's because so many methods of carbon removal are really just about accelerating natural processes. And as you know, Canada is really wealthy in natural resources, and so we can leverage our existing natural resources in marine environments, in mining, in forestry to really accelerate the process of removing carbon pollution and doing it in a way that we can sell these carbon removal services around the world, not just to deal with our own emissions, but emissions globally. And so what we've discovered at Carbon Removal Canada is that there's a huge economic opportunity attached to this that we have not even begun to scratch the surface of. And we just encourage folks to visit carbonremoval.ca, and we have some information there about the economic opportunity, the job creation potential, especially in Atlantic Canada with marine carbon removal solutions. Canada has the longest coastline in the world, and there are carbon removal solutions that leverage coastlines to help remove carbon. Those are jobs, and that's economic opportunity, and that also helps us deal with our environmental problems that maybe was front and center yesterday on Earth Day.
Yeah, no, and do you find sometimes that Earth Day comes and goes, and it's not given the general attention that was intended? I just think that years ago there was much more attention given to it. We all turned our lights off for at least an hour and so forth, and it just seems to come and go now. And I knew it was Earth Day yesterday because I saw you reach out. I'm not sure I would have known otherwise.
Yeah, that does happen. I think it's just, folks are getting a little, I guess, cynical about what we can really do because these, our environmental problems keep getting worse. And I think what we need to do is add more solutions to the menu of options. And I think that can really inspire folks to do something on Earth Day and on every day when we see kind of our environmental problems getting worse. And Canadian innovators are bringing new technologies and new innovations to bear to address those. I think that can make people feel a little bit more hopeful and hopefully a little more invested in Earth Day.
Well, I thank you for calling in and letting us know about this. And if there's an economic advantage and an ability here in Atlantic Canada to take advantage of doing that and helping the environment by getting rid of what we've already created over the last 100 years or so, hopefully somebody will come along and do the investments that are necessary to get that down the road. Thank you for calling in this morning. I appreciate it. Did you want to have a final word before I let you go?
Well, just to build on what you said there, I think the folks that we need to talk to drive investments in this are our local policymakers, and asking them what are they doing to support the carbon removal sector, because like so many sectors in our economy, that they started off expensive or they started off as kind of new emerging technologies, and they received some early policy support to get the ball rolling, like solar or wind or some of these other technologies. And if we can get our policymakers to support this sector in Canada, this Canadian sector that's being built and is truly world leading right now, we can hang on to that lead and build on that lead and really create an economic powerhouse out of it. So I just encourage folks to ask their local representatives, what are we doing about not just reducing our emissions, but removing carbon from the atmosphere, and how do we create good paying jobs out of that process?
Okay, Naim, thank you very much for calling. You have a great day. I'm going to move on to line one where I have Ray. Ray, good morning. Welcome to Open Line.
Yes, and a pleasant good morning to you as well. What I'm calling about today, once again, is the Hydro Memorandum of Understanding, which I call a Memorandum of Misunderstanding. I think any money that's paid to the Newfoundland government for the hydro project in Labrador be paid on the outstanding bill and nothing else. And I also think that Quebec should pay an equitable amount on this project. They're getting the lion's share of what's coming out of there. We're supplying hydro to a lot more people than the 300,000 or so here in Newfoundland. And I think that Quebec should upfront pay for an equal amount of what that project cost and get the burden off the ratepayers here in Newfoundland.
Isn't that part of the MOU, though? Isn't Quebec spending the majority of the money to develop the whole thing, and then we get a cut of it and they get a cut of it and so forth? Isn't that part of it already?
Well, I don't know. The only thing I know, there's a massive bill there that's accruing interest rate, and the cost of that $15 billion, by the time that's paid with interest, how much is it going to cost the ratepayers here in Newfoundland? I mean, it seems such a disgrace to have this project to be going in this fashion, where every ratepayer here in Newfoundland got to pay such a high premium when all the provinces around Canada and through the United States, the portion that they're getting, they get such a break on their hydro bills, while a handful of people here in Newfoundland got to pay so extraordinary much.
Yeah, no, it's a good topic to debate, and I guess we're going to find out in a few days what the review by the current government, their panel will show, and we'll see if it goes anywhere further than where it is now.
And I really think, I can't express enough that any money being paid should go on that project, on nothing else. That money should not be spent anyplace else, and try to give a break back to the ratepayers of Newfoundland.
Yeah, the ratepayers in this province could certainly use the break. There's no doubt about that. And of course, we are getting a break now, aren't we? We're getting $500 million of taxpayers' money are offsetting the costs of our power rates right now. So anything we can do, I suppose, to keep that in check is good news for everybody.
Anything. I thank you very much.
Ray, thank you for calling this morning. Greatly appreciate you chiming in on the MOU. It's going to be a topic of debate for some time, I'm sure. And we're up to 11:46 now. We're going to take a short break here on Open Line, and we'll be back in just a few moments.
I appreciate you being there. Thank you.
Okay, Ray, you take care. Have a great day. Welcome back to Open Line. I'm your host, Darren Bent, and I'm going to line 5 to Kelly Russell. And as of yesterday, the former mayor of Salmon Cove. former Mayor Russell, welcome to Open Line. You've got some trying times up there, I guess, when it comes to council, and I understand at least 2 or 3 members of your council have resigned. Tell us what's going on.
Yes. 3 members of our council and myself have resigned. We have been facing some issues since the time that we were elected, actually. And we felt that this was the only thing we could do at this time, because we've tried every option at our disposal. And I'm talking about mainly the main concern we have is with collective agreement that we have with 2 town workers. And this collective agreement, it just has some things in there that are really absurd and are costing us up to like tens of thousands of dollars in excess of what we would normally have to spend. And I'm not against unions. That's not what I really look up to unions, and it's not the representatives of the union, because they're doing their job and they're doing it very well. But each community in the province has a different collective agreement, as far as I can tell. So councils are responsible for negotiating a collective agreement with a major union that has every lawyer and all the money in the world that we don't have. And it's very daunting, it's very intimidating, and to me it's unfair, because we don't have the experience to do that type of thing.
Are you in collective bargaining right now?
No. The collective bargaining was already done when we took office. So we have that contract now for another 3 years.
Okay. So why now did you feel that it was the right time to resign based on a contract that you know, and I guess the town knows, it has to live with for the next 3 years?
Yeah, because all these councillors and I who resigned, we went into this to make a difference for the town. I mean, we live in a beautiful town with a lot of visitors in the summertime, and we have wonderful residents who have been nothing but supportive. And we felt that if we stayed in the positions that we were in, that we were also being complicit by being there and watching it and not being able to do anything about it. Plus, it was taking up all our funds that we had, and we basically couldn't do anything else because it was taking up so much extra money. And this is money that we were we're spending it on behalf of the residents who are hard workers, and some of them give up every last cent they have to pay their tax bills. And they voted us in to be responsible for that money, and we felt like we weren't being responsible, and we didn't have any recourse.
Can you tell us what the clauses in the contract were, what the money was going to be spent on that you just couldn't live with as being mayor?
Yeah, it was, I don't have the collective agreement in front of me, but I know that like overtime hours and things like that, and we never had the ability to change hours to suit the town. We never had the ability to, because of past practice and allowing things to happen, that when we had infrastructure, failures, we had to call outside contractors, which cost us over $40,000 last year. And next year, we know that we're going to have even more issues because there has been some upgrades in the pressure of the water that's going to cause water leaks and stuff like that. So we know this year it's going to be even worse. So we feel like that is not fair, and we feel like that we're not qualified really to deal with grievances and stuff that come in. I know I don't feel confident that I can do a good job of that, and I don't think any other councillor felt the same way. They all felt the same, that they weren't qualified and to do that. So I think what needs to be done is government needs to maybe negotiate an agreement for all towns. Because you could have a really good agreement in one town, and the next town could have a one that's totally in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And then these grievances, if somebody, like if municipalities, Newfoundland, could at least like deal with the grievances or tell us how to deal with the grievances. I mean, I've contacted labor lawyers and everything, and to no avail. So we felt that if we stayed there, that we were being complicit as well.
Yeah. Have you reached out to municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador? Because I know they offer resources to municipalities.
Yes, I did.
And they couldn't help you?
No. They they tried to help. I'm sure to the best of their ability, and told us to call lawyers and stuff, which I did. But I mean, we don't have unlimited resources. So when you're dealing with grievances, you could spend thousands of dollars on a lawyer to deal with one grievance, and that's fine. That will be settled. But then what happens to the next grievance? You know?
Yeah, and it's small town versus big union, and you don't have the financial resources to be able to fight those battles the way that you think they would need to be fought.
Exactly, and we just felt like at the end there, the last straw was we were only there to pay the bills, and that was it. And I mean, the town clerk could do that easily. So what were we really there for? So we felt like we couldn't do anything, and we think that our residents deserve more, and the town deserves more. We've got so much going for us here. We thought that we were going to do wonderful things, and that's the reason why we put our names forth. And I mean, the residents voted for us to pick up for them and to do good things, you know. And we've just felt like we were between a rock and a hard place.
A lot of small towns are saddled by, but is there personality issues in here exacerbating this as well?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Our council members were respectful. We listened to each other, even though we didn't agree all the time. We got along very well, and we were all there for the same purpose.
I don't mean within council. I mean between you and your staffing, your council and your staff.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Well, I don't feel like I can discuss that because of legal issues.
Okay.
But.
So where do you?
Yeah.
So there's 4 of you that have resigned. How big is council?
5.
Okay, so there's 1 left.
Yeah.
And that's not a council.
Yeah.
I guess you have to have more than 1 person, I suspect, under the Municipalities Act to continue.
Yes.
So I suppose you're going to reach out to the province to come and work with the town.
Yeah, I think that the province has already come out with a letter and said that the remaining councillor will be in charge until a by-election is called.
Okay. So have you reached out to the province yet, and have you had discussions as to what the situation is there in Salmon Cove with them?
No, not really. No. Well, I have reached out to somebody, but I wasn't really given much information, so I don't know where it goes from here, but I really have concerns for the residents and the town. I've got to be honest, because we felt stifled. We felt like there was nowhere to go. There was nowhere to turn.
Yeah.
And we did this totally for residents, because we felt that if we stayed there, what was the point of being there? You know, we couldn't spend the next 3.5 years fighting with unions. You know what I mean? And like I said, they know what they're doing. This is their jobs. They're doing a very good job of it. You know, they're really good at their work. So and we're not good at negotiating.
Yes. What's the budget for the town of Salmon Cove?
Well, we have a total income of like $700,000.
Right. And you're spending all of that just keeping the lights on and the staff paid and so forth. Do you have a big staffing crew?
No. We have 2 maintenance workers and 2 town clerks. One is part-time, and same thing with maintenance. 1 full-time, 1 part-time.
Yeah. Are they all the same union?
No. Our town clerks are not unionized.
Okay. All right. So you got 2 unionized staff, and that's where the issue is with the contract and how you have to deal with that. You need outside private contractors to do some work, and you're being saddled with grievances, I suspect, from the union for doing that work.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, no, not for doing that work. No, that's wrong. No.
Okay.
We're being saddled with grievances for other things, not that.
Okay, like what?
For example, we called in a guy from our on-call list, and he was called in for 3 hours at a time for a couple of times this year and 1 day for last year. And we were told that there was grievances put in saying that we had to give him a boot allowance of $300 for last year and a $300 boot allowance for this year, no matter if he's called in for 3 hours or, 300 hours.
Okay, well, that gets to the root of it and the money. Former Mayor Russell, Salmon Cove, thank you very much for your time this morning. I'm overtime now with Open Line, and I know the newsroom here at VOCM are going to follow up with you and see if there's anything else that they need to put this story together. All the best to you and the residents of Salmon Cove. I thank you for your time this morning. Difficult situation you're in, and sorry to hear that it's led to the resignation of most all of the council. We're going to go to the 12 o'clock news now, and thank you, Mayor Russell, former Mayor Russell, and thank you for listening to Open Line.